Oh, hi, girls.
Autograph seeker.
Well, y'all heard it now. Oh, it's just enjoy yourself. I know you will. Where's Clay's name? I didn't see it.
Here we go. Ready to go here and do it.
Connie, I forgot mine.
We're going to fix it up.
Just as long as you give it to me. I'll bring it.
Is Clay not coming home?
Yeah.
Is he coming?
He didn't call and say he
He's on the bill. I'm sorry. That's what Bruce said. S-M-E-E? Okay. All right, if I want to get it on the up.
We're ready. Clay's going to be late. We got an almost full house. This regular meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for September 17th, 2013 will come to order. I'll ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Item 1.2 on your agenda is the approval of the minutes from the regular meetings of July 16th and August the 20th, and special meetings of July 9th and July 30th. Is there a motion that these minutes be approved?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor of the approval, please say aye. Aye. Oppose, like sign. Motion carried. All right. We begin now the legislative portion of the agenda, and the first item under that, 2.1, is Ordinance 13-13. This is a first reading, and therefore it requires, our rules require that this be read in its entirety, and our city clerk, Connie Watson, will do that at this time. Ms. Connie.
Ordinance 13-13, an ordinance rescinding Ordinance 90-22 in its entirety and amending Title 18 of the Springfield Municipal Code entitled Water and Wastewaters by rescinding Chapter 3 entitled Sewage Disposal in its entirety and substituting a new Chapter 3 entitled Sewage Disposal to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Whereas in order to better protect the public health and safety, it is necessary to establish updated regulations for sewage disposal. And whereas Sections 18-301 through 18-313 of the Springfield Municipal Code were passed under Ordinance 88-15, and Ordinance 88-15 has previously been rescinded and superseded in its entirety by Ordinance 90-22, which was not codified. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Section 1, Ordinance 90-22 is hereby rescinded in its entirety and Title 18 of the Springfield Municipal Code entitled Water and Wastewaters is hereby amended by rescinding Chapter 3 entitled Sewage Disposal in its entirety and substituting a new Chapter 3 entitled Sewage Disposal to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Section 2, all ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
All right, is there a motion that this be considered?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Can someone tell us pretty quickly what that means?
We'll ask the Water and Wastewater Director to please come to the podium and explain what we are just gotten a motion and a second for. This is Mr. Roger Lee Masters.
Ordinance 90-22 was adopted by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen in December of 1990 and was apparently never codified. Title 18, Chapter 3 has been changed several times, but there's a lot of differences between that and 90-22, so I use that as the base document. What we have given to you on your iPad is the final version, or at least pretty much the final version of what we think 13-13 ought to look like. What I have not done is to give you the version that shows all the changes. And we thought if we were to give that to you as well as the final version, it might get a little confusing trying to flip back and forth to see what the difference is. So what I've done is to print out copies of the ordinance showing the changes. And at your leisure,
This is our bedtime reading.
oh, you better believe it. There's a lot of red ink in there to show the changes that are made. The additions are shown in red and the deletions are shown in strike-throughs. The biggest part of the changes refer and pertain to the changes that have been made to the federal pretreatment regulations since 1990. The state has adopted pretreatment regulations, and there's changes in here that reflect that. There are a lot of other changes where they make reference to the general manager. They make reference to things that really no longer exist. So some of them are basically grammatical and clerical type changes. The vast majority just put stuff in there that's now in the federal regulations. There are some changes that are pretty significant, and probably the biggest one is found on page 8. I think we probably need to spend a little bit of time. Let me explain what we're doing on page 8, section 7, connection to available public sanitary sewer. Now, some of that is taken directly from 90-22 and not changed. However, we've also tried to define the availability, what constitutes availability of a sanitary sewer. And what we're saying here is that a sanitary sewer is available to a piece of property if the adjoining property is a public right-of-way or there is an easement there that has a sanitary sewer. If they're butted up against each other, then that sewer is available to that piece of property. We never really defined that in the past as what constitutes availability. Now, we also have not said under what conditions must somebody connect to the sanitary sewer. I read hundreds of ordinances in my time as a state engineer. Most of them define the distance. If you're any closer than so and such distance from a sanitary sewer, you have to connect to it. Ours did not say that. Our existing ordinance did not say that. So what I put in here is, if a building on a piece of property is within 150 feet, any part of the building is 150 feet away from the available sanitary sewer, they must connect. Now, if they're farther than 150 feet away, they do not have to connect. But if the sewer is available, they're required to pay a monthly sewer fee as if they were connected to the sanitary sewer. And then there's a part in there that says, if the county health department or the state or the director determines that a failing on-site system is causing or could cause an environmental or a health problem, then the director can require them to connect to the available sanitary sewer. And that's probably the biggest change that directly affects people who will have a possibility of connecting or not connecting to sanitary sewer. You know, we ran 41 South sewer down towards Greenbrier several years ago, and some people said, well, do I have to connect? I said, well, our ordinance is not specific as whether you have to or not. So this time I'm trying to make it clear in here as to when they do or when they do not have to connect to the sanitary sewer. The rest of it, if you, and probably I'm sure next month, when you all had your chance to thoroughly digest the 40 pages and all that show the red and the strike-throughs, I'm sure you'll have a lot more questions. But that's probably the biggest change that we're making in the sanitary sewer, the ordinance today, except for the changes required by the state and federal regulations.
All right, but in view of this, what you're asking tonight is that this be approved on first reading, knowing that it's subject to 2 more readings.
Yes, sir.
Before it can be enacted. In that length of time, we'll have had time to, if we read 2 pages a day.
You'll have
I
the
guess we'd be
time.
ready for the next one, okay.
Have one more question.
All right.
Can you get us a list of things that would be required of our citizens that's not federally mandated or state mandated? In other words, I want to know what changed, what did we change as a city of Springfield? And I'd like a list of those, and I
Okay.
think everybody would like to have that.
You want to distinguish in all of these that are, anything that is not a change in federal or state mandates?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr.
I
Hubbard?
have a comment.
All right, go
Mr.
ahead.
Masters, even the engaging introductory paragraph is more defined than this one that you deleted. You know, it's better. There's more clarity.
Right.
The specific regulations are back of it, as opposed to the one you deleted. So,
All right, are there other questions or comments tonight?
I have
Ms.
one
Snyder.
question, Mr. Mayor. I know that, I think it was on North Main where we had sewer hookup, but a lot of folks chose, or several folks chose not to hook up. Is this going to require them, the 150, to go back, and is this retro, or is this going forward?
Well, I think you can choose to pay a sewer fee instead of hooking up.
And that's what they're
But
doing
if you're within
currently.
150 feet, when we did 41 South, what we told people, and we probably are going to have to hold to this, but they're many feet off the sewer. We told them they would not have to connect until their septic systems, failed and they had no other means of doing it. But we're looking at great distances. I mean, we're not looking at anybody really close to everyone's at least 150 feet and many more than that.
I know there were a couple businesses that were concerned about hooking up to the sewer and they didn't want to.
I think we need to, my suggestion is to grandfather those that we've
Okay.
already established a situation. 41 North, or 41 South is that type of situation where not everybody's sitting right on a sewer main, and it's going to cost a lot of money, and no one would have the motivation to do it unless they had the sewer. Now, but one of the things we might want to consider, however, is we did put the sewer out there, and it is available. And we never talked about paying a monthly fee. I did tell some of those people that, there might be a point in time where we might charge you a monthly fee, just, to match your water bill, but you wouldn't have to actually hook up and pay for the sewer connection until your septic system failed, or you just wanted to connect to the sewer on your own volition.
All right, between now then and the regular meeting, the next regular meeting, which is October the 15th, that's as early as it can be, we'll have time to, to go over all of this and highlight those areas that you have particular questions or concerns about, and then we can act on it accordingly. Are there other questions, though, tonight before we vote on this? Hearing none, I'll ask that the roll be called.
Snyder.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Ellis.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Pass 6-0.
All right, we're ready now for item 2.2, which is a second reading on ordinance 13-16. This ordinance establishes a new fee for the rental of the Martin Luther King Jr. Park football field. Is there a motion this be considered on its second reading?
So moved. Second.
All right. Any discussion? It was rather thoroughly discussed, as I recall, at last meeting.
Definitely.
Hearing no further questions or comment, we'll call the roll.
Head.
Yes.
Carneal.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Ellis.
Aye.
Passed 6-0.
All right, 2.3 is in regard to Title 8 of our municipal code entitled Alcoholic Beverages by amending Chapter 1 entitled Intoxicating Liquors and by rescinding Section 8-119 entitled Regulations for Purchase and Sale of Intoxicating Liquors in its entirety and substitutes a new Section 8-119. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, any discussion now?
Mr. Nutty?
Mr. Nutty, you have some
Well,
comment here?
Thank you, Mayor. I hope you got the memo from Ms. Murphy. I think she explained that pretty well, but to reiterate pretty much what she covered, we're going to, the recommendation is, and we haven't numbered this ordinance because we're not sure whether you really want to take action on it first reading tonight. If you do, we'll simply number the ordinance and you can vote on that. But briefly, what it's all about is we've got a request. 8-119 has 16 provisions to it. The new ordinance will have 15 provisions because one of the issues, number 8, it reads in the current ordinance as follows. No retailer licensed under this chapter shall sell or permit to be sold any alcoholic beverage which has been chilled or refrigerated in any manner. And I think we've been contacted with some of our local liquor stores, and other cities are allowing this. So the proposed ordinance would delete number 8 in its entirety, keep everything else. And so number 9 would become number 8, number 10 would become number 9, and that's how you get to 15 items. There's one other change, 16, which will be now number 14. Reads as follows. No retailer shall sell, lend, or give away any alcoholic beverages on any day of a general or primary election or upon Christmas or Thanksgiving, Labor Day, New Year's Day, and the 4th of July. State law does not cover general or primary elections. So we are deleting, we are keeping that section, but we are deleting any day of a general or primary election. The other dates, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Labor Day, New Year's Day, and 4th of July, stay in the ordinance. So there are just 2 changes to that one section.
Is that, did you have a statement or anything that you wanted to point out, Ms. Murphy? Okay. All right, any further discussion? Motion and a second.
Yes.
All right.
Do you want to give this a number?
Yes, that number would be 13-18.
The number of this is 13-18. All right, vote your preference when your name is called. Well, wait just a moment. Mr. Sneed has just arrived.
Go ahead, I'll catch up on that.
Okay, all right. I think he says he's just going to catch up later on it, so let's.
It's pretty serious.
Well, it's going to have to be caught up to speed. Is this one going to require 3 readings also? Oh,
Mr. Mayor, doesn't she have to read it?
Yes, you will have to read that anyway, so we'll have it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, let's go ahead. It will now be read in its entirety.
Ordinance 13-18, an ordinance amending Title 8 of the Springfield Municipal Code entitled Alcoholic Beverages by amending Chapter 1 entitled Intoxicating Liquors by rescinding Section 8-119 entitled Regulations for Purchase and Sale of Intoxicating Liquors in its entirety and substituting a new Section 8-119 to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Whereas the regulations for the purchase and sale of intoxicating liquors need to be amended with regard to the specific days alcoholic beverages may not be sold, and with regard to allowing the refrigeration of alcoholic beverages. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Springfield, Tennessee as follows. Section 1, Title 8 of the Springfield Municipal Code entitled Alcoholic Beverages is hereby amended by amending Section 1 entitled Intoxicating Liquors by rescinding Section 8-119 entitled Regulations for Purchase and Sale of Intoxicating Liquors in its entirety and substituting a new Section 8-119 to read as set forth in Exhibit A attached. Section 2, all ordinances, resolutions, and policies in conflict herewith are hereby rescinded to the extent of the conflict only.
All right. Everybody's heard that. Are there any questions now before you vote on first reading? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Ellis.
No.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Snyder. Carneal.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Passed 5-1.
It'll have to have an abstention too, then, on it, with Mr. Sneed having arrived.
Yes.
So it'd be a 5-1-1.
Well, one abstain, yes, 5.
5-4,
and
one
one
against, and one abstention.
Right.
Okay. All right, we move now to 2.4 at the bottom of the first page. This is in regard to Resolution 13-19. This resolution, which requires, of course, just one vote, declares certain property as surplus and authorizes the disposal of such property. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any questions? Vote your preference.
Carneal.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Sneed.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Snyder. Ellis.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Passed 7-0.
Okay. And now to the administrative portion of the agenda on the second page. Item 3.1 is to discuss and possibly take action on scheduling a workshop to discuss the ongoing evaluation of our sanitary sewer system by the engineers, Gresham Smith and Partners, and the various cost estimates required for the needed rehabilitation of the system as a whole. I'm going to make us add one other thing to it. You'll notice, if you'll flip over to 3.14 at the bottom of the next page, we're also asked for a workshop with the group that, I guess an economic development group, if you will, the Realizing Robertson's Future Investor Group, of which we are a major investor, for a work session to discuss various plans relative to economic development. And I'm not suggesting that these should be on the same night. I'm saying, no, that there are two requests in here for extra meetings. So my suggestion is going to be that one of these occur between tonight and the October 15th meeting, and one of them occur between the October 15th meeting and the November 19th meeting. So the sewer one is the first one on the agenda. If we split the difference there, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks there. The middle date would be Tuesday, October 1st. Does that present any problems? Hearing none. All right, it'll be a 7 o'clock meeting, as our extra meetings usually are. And then when we get to the next one, we'll look at a date between October 15 and November the 19th. All right. Is there any further discussion right now on this? I know we all want to be kept apprised of the details of this sewer system. It's something we get a lot of questions about. So without objection, we'll plan on a meeting for October 1st for that. Now we move to 3.2. This is an adjustment of the electric base rate, not the regular wholesale fuel cost adjustment that we deal with, but a change in the base electric rate as recommended by TVA. Mr. Gardner, the director of the electric department, is here. Robert, would you come to the podium and comment on this, and then we'll get a motion and move forward.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a base rate adjustment that TVA, they meet annually to discuss, have a rate review. Prior to the TVA board meeting in August last year, they did not have a rate increase. This will be the first one since 2011. But they, to meet the 2014 revenue requirements of their budget, they say they need another 1.5% retail base rate increase. Equates to about a 2% wholesale, but for our customers on the retail side, it's 1.5%.
the typical homeowner 1.5%?
Typical homeowner would see a 1.5%, another $1.50 on an average residential bill of 1,000 kilowatt hours a month.
Okay, if you'll stay there just a moment. Let's get a motion for this, please. Is there a motion that this rate be changed by as outlined by Mr. Gardner? Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion there?
Mr. Gardner,
Yes,
what was the premise behind the 1.5 increase?
Is to offset the capital expenditures for the Watts Bar 2 nuclear plant. That's about $3.3 billion for that, and also the just had less sales. The problem is that the sales are decreasing system-wide throughout the valley because of the weather, and also because of there's so many economic efficiency incentives out there that there's less demand for the product, believe it or not, than there was about 10 years ago.
So the catastrophic sludge deal is over with. They've handled that already financially.
They've handled that. You're actually paying for that in the prior rate increase in 2011, but that's not a component of this rate increase.
All right, you have a motion and second that this rate increase be approved. Is there any further comment?
Question, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Ellis.
1.5%, that's TVA raising that to us. In other words, if we don't raise that, if we don't raise it locally,
Right.
then we're going, they're going to raise their rate. So we're losing 1.5%.
On the wholesale side, in other words, what we pay TVA is closer to 2%.
2%.
But on the retail side, the effect to our customers is 1.5%.
Now, I'll ask you to point out again, out of every dollar that the customer, the Springfield Electric customer pays in their rates, what percentage, how much of that dollar is kept by Springfield for operations?
88 cents today out of every dollar goes back to TVA for our power.
And we
costs.
operate the system on 12%.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Any further questions on this? Please call the roll.
Mason.
Aye.
Ellis.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
Now, we have now the regular monthly adjustment of electric rates due to the wholesale fuel cost adjustments. Sometimes these go up, sometimes they go down. This month, what is the verdict, Mr. Gardner?
This month is a 3.75% decrease.
Decrease.
Oh.
Okay. 3.75% down. All right. Is there a motion that be accepted?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Snyder.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Ellis.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
All right. Now, similarly, thank you, Mr. Gardner. From the gas department, Mr. Riddle, what's the monthly adjustment for you all?
It's down 1.72%, but it's 0.724 for our purchase gas.
Okay. Good. More good news. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. All right. Any discussion on accepting that? Please call the roll.
Head.
Yes.
Carneal.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Ellis.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
All right. 3.5, to discuss and possibly take action on a request from the Robertson County Schools for the annexation of a 19.27 acre tract of land located on Batson Parkway to annex that into the city limits for the new long-awaited, I will say, elementary school. I'm certainly glad to see this on the agenda. Is there a motion?
Gladly move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion other than amen?
Amen. It's about time.
All right, call the roll, please.
Ellis.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Pass 7-0.
All right, 3.6, Discuss and possibly take action on a request from the Robertson County YMCA for continued funding of the after-school program that involves Springfield Middle School students. We welcome you.
Thank you. I'm Courtney Woodard with the Robertson County Family YMCA. This is not a bribe, I'm telling you, but we just want to give you guys, just show you what you guys help do, you know, for these kids in Springfield. So if you get a chance to look at that, and we would love for it to be displayed in the annex so everybody can see what you guys done.
For the audience and for when we get the television reactivated, Courtney, if you would just give a brief highlight of what this program does.
Okay. This program is, after all the things that went on, you know, in last year, we decided to develop an after-school program for middle school age kids. We started in November of last year, and over 60 kids came through the program. We saw behaviors change. Like I said, pants went up. Kids were cursing at the beginning of the program, and at the end, we didn't hear any cussing. It's a lot of things that changed, you know, just by this program, just investing in these kids. For some of them, it was the first time they had anyone just to take, you know, interest in them. You know, we took kids to, over the summer, we took them to a buffet. For the first time some of these kids had ever been to a buffet. They didn't know the proper way to, you know, just leave your plate at the table and go get another one, and just different things like that that we take for granted that these kids never experienced. So just different things like that. But we saw so many improvements in these kids, and we just hope it can continue. So that's a summary of last year. So.
Okay. And you're asking for
continued funding.
At the same rate, same level?
Well, we understand things are economically hard right now, and it's economically hard for us. We had to close a couple of Ys in our association, so we understand things are hard. But if we could get $10,000 to further our program and just, you know, help us, you know, take back the children of Springfield, I mean, it's a great investment.
You're requesting $10,000?
Yes. I mean, if you want to give me more, that's fine, but a request of 10.
You want to stand here a little longer, we'll negotiate a little more. But I want to say we are pleased with what you've done.
Thank you.
And I think you had an ambitious goal, but a much needed goal.
Yes.
And I think all of this board is appreciative of those efforts. And it's prevention of I mean, things of this nature cost initially, but they save money over the long
Yes.
haul, because I'm looking at the police chief, then we don't have to work him quite so hard,
Yes.
you know, if you all do your job well. All right, this is a request for $10,000 that is currently not in our approved budget. Is that right, Mr. Nutty?
That's correct.
All right,
I make a motion.
go ahead, Mr. Hubbard.
I make a motion to grant the YMCA $10,000 toward the after-school program.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, now discussion,
Yes, sir.
okay?
I've talked to Mr. Wood, and I commended you on the work that you've done, and especially in the cognitive behavioral approaches that you've used. And it definitely has paid off. But I've talked to a few kids that were there, and we need to see this. It's like you said, pay now, drive the police chief crazy later.
Yeah. That's what I say, invest now or invest later. So
Exactly.
it's going to be an investment somewhere.
I had to put it in his lap.
All right, Ms. Snyder.
As most of you know, I'm on the YMCA board and I will have to abstain, but I have to tell you that this program has been outstanding, and it's the only one in Robertson County I know that's working with the middle school children. And if you have an opportunity, please go out and visit with them. They need our time. They not only need the money or this program won't go on, but they need our time, and they need mentors.
Thank you. Mr. Mason, did you have a comment?
No, except I appreciate what he's doing.
Okay. Mr. Ellis?
No.
Mr. Sneed? Mr. Head? All right, I've already made my comments known. I'm very much appreciative of the program. the only thing that is difficult for us is squeezing this budget more than it already been squeezed.
Definitely understand.
But there is a motion on the floor now and a second. No one else seems to want to speak. I'll ask Ms. Connie to call the roll.
Carneal.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Sneed.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Ellis. Hubbard.
Aye.
Passed 6-0 and 1 abstain.
Thank you, Ms. Ragland. We appreciate your being with us as well.
Keep putting that tough love on.
I'm going to give everybody thanks. This is the village thing right here.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it. Thank you for what you did.
Wait, I think he wants to.
I'm proud of you.
All right, if you'll look now at the next item, this is item 3.7, and it's a recommendation from the Traffic Committee to reduce the speed limit to 20 miles an hour on 15th Avenue between Batts Boulevard and South Main Street. That's beside Serenity Funeral Home?
Funeral home, yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
And a second?
Second.
I was going to say it would be a little hard to get up too much above 20 miles an hour, I would think there, but I imagine there's some people that are capable of it, so.
I was called out last year by Mr. Woods, and to sit there and observe. You have some people, once they turn off Batts Boulevard, will probably get up about 70 miles an hour by the time you get in front of the funeral home. It is a scary situation.
Well, it sounds like
Instead of sharing the road, they'll come to that booming and flying and flipping and flopping all in the middle of the road, and just showing total disrespect and totally, I'm gonna say the word, ghettoism. Okay, so it's well needed.
All right, got a motion
Yes.
and a second. Any further comments?
What's the speed limit now?
30.
I mean, can we not enforce the existing speed restriction? I mean, if we reduce it, are we going to expect it to be enforced at 20 where it's not being enforced at 30?
All right, this came from the Traffic Committee, Mr. Alden Ellis.
I mean, it's just, I'll vote for it, but I mean, I just.
The entire city speed limit is 30 where it's not posted.
That's correct. It's 30 if it's not posted. But,
Okay.
Chief Thompson, do you have any comment on this?
No, sir, other than we'll enforce the speed limit, whatever you set it at, we'll enforce it.
All right, thank you, sir.
And one more thing, Mr. Mayor, it's a sensitivity because Mr. Wood gives a great service, and almost every other day, there are people coming in and out, and people coming out of there, grief-stricken and not paying attention, and these idiots might, So we're really trying to prevent other deaths.
Other comments before we vote? Please call the roll.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Head.
yes.
Ellis. Mason.
Aye.
Passed 7-0.
All right, 3.8 is to discuss and possibly take action on the following parade application. One is a Whiskers and Paws 5K run and walk for the cause submitted by Diane Johnson. This would be scheduled for September 21st from 8:30 to 9:30, starting at Springfield Middle and ending at Travis Price Park. The second one on the next page is the Springfield High School Homecoming Parade submitted by Jamie Stanley for September 27th from 4 to 4:30 p.m. This starts assembling at 3, the parking lot across from Southside Drug at the corner of 10th and Main. Third is the Robertson County Bump in the Night Bash submitted by United Way. This certain street closures are requested on October the 25th from 5 p.m. until midnight, and on the 26th from 9 a.m. until midnight. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the whole consent.
Is there a second?
Second.
Go ahead.
All right. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mason.
Aye.
Ellis. Sneed.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder. Pass 7-0.
All right, 3.9 is a follow-up of some discussion we've had in the last meeting or two, which would implement a fund balance policy for the general fund. And Mr. Nutting, I'm going to ask you to make a comment on that, please.
Well, thank you, Mayor. As you see, you have a memo from Ms. Murphy, our Director of Finance. You also have a model fund balance policy from MTAS. And we know we're trying to get started with the policy, so we have really a very simple policy to begin with, dealing with general fund. I think the idea is gradually to flesh out this policy, and we have to have a fund balance policy for all of our operating funds. And as you can see, that a fund balance policy can be at several levels, and I think there are 4 different levels. What we're trying to get here, I think, Jane, is just to identify the unrestricted fund balance, things that aren't dedicated to specific uses, and get some idea on that. From a practical standpoint, in the current fiscal year budget, we've got something like $1,910,000, and how astute of me, now it is a $1,900,000 reserve. So really, we have what we have. So we've got to go ahead and use that in the first year. I've got a couple of recommendations that we could gradually build to, and these are in order of my preference. My first preference would be to have a general fund balance based on 2 months operating expenditures, which would include long-term bonded indebtedness. And based on the current fiscal year budget, this amount would be $3,063,000. The next preference would be simply to have 2 months operating expenditures excluding the long-term bonded indebtedness, and based on the current fiscal year budget, the amount would be $2,704,440, or $2,007,000 in round numbers. And then the other preference would be, of course, to at least keep in an amount that is equal to the annual expenditures for the long-term bonded indebtedness, which this year is $2,151,395. You could round that down a little bit. But the idea here is to make sure that we had enough in reserve to cover our bonded indebtedness and help keep our bond rating, which is a good A1 for a city of our size, and we've held that for about 3 years now, so we'd like to retain that. So hopefully we're going to do a little better than what generally we do on the budget. So hopefully we'll get better than $1.9 million at the end of the year. But it is what it is as far as the fund balance. So it's pretty much established for now. You don't really have any options. My suggestion would be every 2 years at least, look at your fund balance and pick a number that you think you can, by consensus, live with, and we'll make sure that when we prepare the budget for that particular year that we try to keep that in mind, that we maintain a reserve in that amount of money. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Well, I think everybody here wants to get this policy in effect as we plan for future expenditures. I think the question is which one of these would be the initial goal in that regard. Does anyone want to make a motion in that regard?
So moved.
Which amount would you have?
Well, it's listed here on the bottom paragraph. Fund balance policy established a minimum unassigned fund balance equal to 25% of general fund expenditures. Is that what you're looking for, that figure? It's listed in there.
Okay, is that what you're wanting, published?
Well, I think what I had 3 options on my memo,
On your,
and it was either 2 months operating expenditures, which would include bonded indebtedness at $3,063,000. 2 months operating expenditures excluding long-term bonded indebtedness, which would be $2,704,000 roughly, and then just an amount that would cover the long-term bonded indebtedness for 1 year, which in this year is $2,151,395. If we're going to establish anything really for 2014, I mean, it probably, from a practical standpoint, it's not going to be probably any more than $2,151,000, and it can't be any less than $1,009,000 because that's what we've already budgeted. But the idea is, you know, establish one, and then we'll review it every couple of years, and we'll change that and build it into the budget process.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Ellis.
Oh, this is something that I had asked that we have to discuss tonight, and from what I've heard, I think we should set it at $2 million a year, which is a base amount. We've talked about 1.9 versus 2.150 or something like that. So if we take the middle and keep a $2 million fund balance in a general fund, we can operate.
Okay.
With the language
And
that's
Mr.
already.
Speed had suggested an amount. You
Well-
have suggested.
I see you're talking about basically the suggestion number 3, which is 2.1. He's got a 2.1, a 2.7, a 3.06. He's got 3 suggestions in his memo.
No, it's on.
Yeah, he's really taking the position that you were really budgeted to finish about, the number was $1,910,000, but in fact it really is right now, after the last action with the Y, we'll use reserve funds to fund that. So the real number is $1,009,000, and so what Mr. Ellis is suggesting, if we can go ahead and do a little better than what we had budgeted, we should be able to generate $2 million, which is a reasonable approach to the
All right.
problem.
Somebody want to make a, Mr. Hubbard, you have a statement.
Yeah, my comment was, why not just go ahead and accept the $2,151,395, and everything's included in number 3?
Well, Mr. Ellis was just kind of picking one in between there, I think, but nevertheless,
You know.
all right, I'm going to entertain a motion here as to a specific amount, and then see if that gets a second. So whomever's hand I see first, I'm going to, okay, I'm letting to be looking that way. Mr. Ellis,
$2 million. Set
$2 million.
$2
Is there a
million.
second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Snyder. Now discussion. Any further discussion?
Is there discussion on the 3.9? I mean, that memo he's talking about goes to the 3.9 policy, the policy in 3.9. There's some verbiage in here I want to change.
What?
More
We're
discussion.
not following that where you are.
Yeah, there's a little,
Clause.
what we have here, let me see, if you follow in the, I think what we want to do, let me make sure I've got which one is the
Right
shorter
now,
one.
we're just voting on a dollar amount. It's
No,
not
we're
the
looking at-
policy itself.
Well, and then let me clarify, that's a good question, Mr. Sneed, and I think what the intent is here, we will start with a simple fund balance policy, which is the abbreviated example that Ms. Murphy put in the packet. It says fund balance policy. You will be, if you look in that, it's the second one from the end. It says this fund balance policy establishes a minimum unassigned fund balance, and it says to be decided. So the number will plug into that simple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraph fund balance that we're going to start with. Now, as we go on, we'll have a more involved debt service policy, of which you have the longer version that MTAS has. And we'll also have to set fund balances for the other operating funds for utilities. But this is a place to begin. We are most interested in general fund to begin with, and we'll start here.
All right, so the $2 million figure would be inserted into this bottom paragraph
Yes,
there.
paragraph.
Mr. Ellis, are you comfortable with that? Is your motion, and is the seconder, Ms. Snyder, comfortable with that?
More discussion
Now-
on the motion.
Yes, sir.
If I can negotiate with Mr. Ellis. Mr. Ellis, look at that number 3. And add that $151,000 with it. It's an amount that's equal to the annual expenditures for long-term bonded indebtedness. The payable long-term bond indebtedness in the current fiscal year amount to $2,151,395. And that was calculated, you know, and so could you negotiate this going ahead at $151,000? If not, I'll live till 2 million, but
No.
you
He's
just want
gonna
to add
stick,
2
he's gonna
million.
stick with his 2 million, and that's what
I
Ms.
agree.
Snyder seconded. All right.
Even.
Is there any further discussion before we vote?
Yes, Mayor,
Go ahead, Mr.
I'm gonna
Snake.
clarify the 3.9, that last paragraph where it says to be decided, 2 million is gonna be inserted into parenthesis there.
Yeah.
There is a word there that, on the next, on the last full sentence says Alderman will develop a plan. I want to change will to shall.
Sure. Any objection to that? That'll be part of it then.
And then, Mr. Nunning, it's written there that a minimum of within 2 years. Next to the last word in that policy, 2 years. Are you comfortable with 2 years? I mean, can we not do that in less time instead of kicking it down the road 2 years?
I just, yeah, if you wanted to do it earlier, I mean, we just have to see how this plays out. Our goal is every year to do better than the budget.
Anything will be better than no policy, I think. So if we could get this off established, I think we'll be moving well.
Well, I'd rather have it stronger than weaker, and that's what I'm trying to do.
That's why I was saying at 2,151 strong.
All right, well, we've got 2 million there now. You've got a second. Is there further discussion before we vote?
Ready for vote.
Call the roll, please.
Head,
Yes.
Carneal,
Aye.
Snyder,
Aye.
Mason,
Aye.
Hubbard,
No.
Ellis, Sneed,
Aye.
pass 6 to 1.
6-1. All right, we move now to item 3.10, to discuss and possibly take action on the bids for the re-roofing and replacement of HVAC units at the center. Paul, do you want to say something about that before we
Sure.
actually?
Thank you, Mayor. Let me give the board a handout here. And then John Clark, who is our architect here, is here to explain the bid. There you go. Just wanted to show you on the spreadsheet, and I'll give everybody a second to get the spreadsheet in front of them. If you will look at the second page, you have the original amendment to the GO bonds, and we at the last look at this, we had the latest estimate of the center roof and HVAC units, including architectural fees, was $601,000. And based on the bid that we have, we can still afford to do the project, but we've got, as you know, I've put the sidewalks and the trails and everything as kind of a flexible project. You know, if we have some money left over, they'd be nice to do. They're not necessities, but we have more serious projects. So I've been taking money out of those items to fund some of the major projects if we need them. So now if you look at center roof and HVAC units, you've got the low bid, which was about $740,000, plus the architectural fees in there. So that will be $785,000 is the estimated budget now on this project if we accept the bid. And we do recommend the bid because I think we've got good prices. That building's over 30 years old. It's got some serious problems. The ductwork needs to be cleaned. It's never been cleaned, and we're going to start getting sick people if we don't do this all at once. We know that ultimately we'd like to add an elevator. We know we have some bathroom work that has to be done, and we probably, in future opportunities for issuing debt, we can take care of that. But right now, to take care of the business at hand, the roof and the HVAC units and the ductwork, I've amended the budget to $785,000, so we have nothing left for Travis Price Park, trails and sidewalks, or for the baseball field. That'll be funded for the HVAC. Also took $133,000 out of citywide sidewalk construction to make that number. So that is the recommendation. Mr. Clark is here to explain the bid and his recommendation.
Mr. Clark, we welcome you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Anything you want to add to
Paul's overview.
I think Mr. Nutting hit it on the head. You're dealing with a building that was built, constructed back in the late 1970s. It's been a tremendous asset for the Springfield community.
Yes, it is.
I think some of this we're paying for a little bit of sins of the past. We've got 3 roofing systems on that existing building over there. The danger of overload is imminent. That's a problem. We're also changing out 2 of the existing HVAC units, as well as refurbing the additional 2 units. We've got 1 unit that the evaporator coils are completely shot, and they need to be replaced. That's over $20,000, and these are just eccentricities of the project that I'm fully aware of that basically add up to the numbers that you folks are seeing tonight. Got to be very careful with that roof, very careful.
How many roofs are on there, John?
There are a total of 3 roofing systems installed on that building. And the original was a great system. It's what we've basically gone back with, only it's a modern version. It's a built-up roof. It's a layered type roofing system, very similar to what we've put on City Hall a couple years ago. Again, back in the late 70s, and we don't design this anymore, but it was constructed heavy steel with a decking, but the decking was made out of a material called tectum. Does anybody know what frosted mini wheats are? Okay, that's analogous to tectum. When it gets wet, it comes apart. So what we have to do is basically spud down, get down to that existing layer of roofing, and then we're going to come back up without getting into the actual tectum deck. If I was designing that facility today, it'd have a metal deck, and that's just, I know why it was done. It was done for an acoustical reasoning back in the day. However, we have to be very careful at getting at that and not going through it, because the way it's designed, if you had to tear away all the tectum deck, you would essentially look at double the cost of the re-roof, because you would be effectively daylighting the roofing system. So that's where we are. The roofing company that I'm recommending, that was the low on bid day, we have done several million square feet of roofing with. They're highly qualified. They're out of Kentucky, Swift Roofing. I think they'll do you an exemplary job. They'll be in and out. The mechanical company that was awarded the bid was Morton Mechanical out of Clarksville. They will also additionally be bonded as a result of this project. It's not just the roofer that's bonding it. You'll have 100% bond, which that's, for those of you that understand that, it prevents anybody from, if you bought materials and didn't pay for them, for the materials provider to come back and say sue the city of Springfield. Neither one of these companies are like that, but no matter what, I'm going to protect you as an entity. But the mechanical systems, there's quite a bit of work to be done up there. In fact, we have to raise the units up even higher to get a code mandated distance between the top of the new roof and where the actual unit will sit down. So when you just factor in all the nuts and bolts of the equation, there's just quite a bit to it. Just the duct cleaning was over $20,000, and quite frankly, we were in discussions, and considering that it has never ever been cleaned, and I was made aware of maybe a fire had occurred, small fire years ago. I think you've got a great building over there. It's got extremely good guts to it, but I think you're on the cusp of, within the next few years, going at it as a phasing plan to try to do some code mandated updates, just because you are at, it's of the age of the building.
What's your estimate of the time involved in the project?
Oh, 90 days.
90 days, okay. Are there questions now? Mr. Ellis?
Did we not just put new cooling units on that last year or the year before?
Oh, it's been about 6 or 7 years ago. We put 2 units. There are 4.
But as he said, he's going to have to redo those 2.
Well, one of the ones that was new, we found out, was damaged. It's one of the Aeon units, isn't it?
Correct. You have a capacity on that roof of essentially 160 tons. One of the Aeon units that is up there right now has a damaged coil, which effectively just renders it useless. And what this project is going to do is going to basically, it's like taking an engine out of a car and rebuilding it, putting it back together again, and then reconnecting it to the digital control systems that are down in Mr. Felt's office area. So once this is all put back together, you'll have a fully functioning system with 160 tons of effective cooling.
For air conditioning.
Yeah,
It's
full
active.
blown
The way it should be.
warranties, the whole 9 yards.
Okay. Other questions? All right, we need a motion, I guess, to act
So
on this,
moved.
approving this low bid. Second. Any further questions?
When would be, if we approve it, when would be the starting date? Will be finished probably before?
What would happen, sir, would be if you folks approve this tonight, I'll immediately go to a contract tomorrow at my office, and I would send it off to the contractor first. That way we secure the bonding mechanism that makes this fly. That contract would come back to me, and then I would forward it off to Mr. Nutting. So within 2 to 3 weeks.
Basketball season, it'll probably be.
Well, the way this is going to work, it's going to work pretty quickly. They're going to work it from the outside. We don't want to really upset day-to-day operations. The only thing that might slow it down a little bit is the fact that you actually, and this is great, but you have it rented every weekend for the entire fall. So weekend work is off limits and 90-day construction time. You will see quite a bit of activity over here.
Other questions or comments?
So you said there'd be no activity even during the week?
During the week, yes.
Yeah.
There'll be roofing activities going on and HVAC, and they'll actually get to a point where they'll have to bring a very, very large crane in, and you will see units being taken off, curb extensions installed, curb adapters put back in, units drop back into position, both existing and new, and that's going to occur within like a day or two. It's got to go that fast because when you pull the curbs off or pull the units off, you effectively are daylighting. You're seeing the daylight out. You're creating the holes in the roof. So we don't want to do that with any kind of weather problem, and the fall is the best time to do it, and that will be done over a period of probably 48 hours. The people that do this are extremely qualified in what they do.
Tony.
Mr. Clark and I have discussed it, Mr. Brewer. The only interruption as far as services over at the center may be the day that we're actually raising several thousand pounds up in the air above the center. And we may make sure that nothing's going on in the actual gym part. We'd hate to see one of them come crashing through the gym. So, but day-to-day operations, you know.
All right. Are there further comments? Please call the roll.
Ellis. Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Pass 7-0.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
311 is to discuss and possibly take action on charging for tap and extension fees for the completed gas main that to serve Martin's Chapel Road, Martin's Chapel Church Road, and intersecting roads in that area. Mr. Nutting?
Well, I think everybody's received the memo, so I think you understand what the situation is. We've got the service lines extended up the properties. Generally, what we charge is $1 a foot plus a $100 tap fee plus a $20 service charge. And I believe that at least 50 customers have got a full service line extension. The only cost to them was a $20 service fee. Now, some are connected but not activated. They haven't actually used the gas. And then some are not connected at all. So it's like maybe 20 out of the 50 have been connected and activated.
20 active is what I've got on my report.
Okay. So they're either taking gas or they're ready to take
They're
gas.
the ones that's physically connected and have a meter in place and they're paying a gas bill.
You mind introducing him?
I'm going to bring you forward. Mr. Riddle, would you?
Yeah.
Give him a formal introduction.
We promised to go easy on you tonight. This is Greg Riddle, our new director of the gas department.
Welcome aboard, sir.
Thank you.
He has been with us for how many years now, Greg?
22,
22, okay. Well, you're seasoned for sure, aren't you?
just a little bit.
That sounds better than saying you're old, though, doesn't it?
Well,
Okay.
that's...
See, that's the people, some of us
Right.
that are up here, and some excluded, of course. All right, do you have any questions of Mr. Riddle now? Otherwise, anybody have any specific questions here?
Mr. Riddle, what's the total cost we're trying to, you have an idea?
Well,
Roundabout figure.
I've got round numbers because I'm working from a construction standpoint.
Just round numbers, you know. Make me.
We're looking at a little over $100,000.
That's why I estimated. I
Right,
wouldn't-
just a little bit over $100,000, and it's hard, you know, when you do a project of this magnitude to go in and dig out rock, and I mean, it's a lot of things involved, so, you know, that's a rough figure. Unfortunately, I don't have access to a lot of things that the accounting folks have access to, but I'm thinking we were a little bit low on that estimate, maybe 120,000, if I'm correct, Jane, somewhere in that neighborhood. $100,000 to $120,000.
Yeah. Now let's clarify that, because what that is, that's the actual main cost.
Right.
Now, and we would not be recouping that from our customers. Well, the issue here is once the main's there, they were connected. So you're looking at about 50 customers. I think, Greg, the shortest distance was about 50 feet. Remember, everybody should be paying $1 a foot, because no one has had gas out there, plus a $100 tap fee. So your shortest distance is about 50 feet. Your longest distance is about 1,300 feet. So, and that's what people would ordinarily pay. And my suggestion is, of course, a lot of the people who got it really didn't understand the situation and are in this situation. I think it's fair to the other customers that they pay, but of course, I think because of the circumstances, we need to accommodate them as far as the ability to pay over time. Some of them will not take gas for years. But we have 20, as Mr. Riddle said, that are ready to be active. So we have to show some, you know, ability to work with people on this. I think the total footage, Greg, of the extensions is somewhere over 15,000 feet just for the service extensions. So that's really what we're talking about.
Right. The actual main was just slightly over 5 miles, but the service material, like Paul said.
We understand that you don't have a main, you're not going to have customers. But just the part where the extensions will run is what we're getting at.
That's the main thing.
Right.
I'm satisfied.
Okay.
All right, is this?
What was the intent of the letter? And I've seen a copy of it, and I guess all of us have. Was it the intent to say, these taps are going to be free because we're going across your property? Is that what it was?
In normal circumstances, if we try to lay on the right of way, but due to some unfortunate circumstances, sometimes we have to lay on customers' property. So we try to get an easement, and we don't try, and within that easement, we try to offer them a service and a tap, because on certain areas, we've got to cross a lot of property, but not in this case. The letter in this case, what we like to do is inform everybody when we're going to be out there, so hopefully we generate some interest in folks wanting to sign up for our service.
Correct.
And inform them, because nobody wants to see a bunch of backhoes and track hoes and dozers show up and they don't know what's going on. So that was the intent of the letter in this case, but
and I think the letter is basically saying pay the service fee, and it doesn't speak to the policy, which is to pay. You will be paying so much a foot And I don't know exactly when the services were installed, but I suspect some of these services had already been installed
That's correct.
before the letter even went out. So
Yes.
instead of explaining what the policy truly is, it just said, come pay your service fee of $20 if you want gas.
So Greg, you're saying that for the footage for the connections was approximately 15,000?
That's
And we would
correct. We're
normally
about
charge how much a foot?
$15,400.
$1, we'd be charging normally $1.
A dollar a foot and a $100 tap fee, which is very cheap, but that is a cost that's
So that's, I
associated
wanted
with
to put it
it.
in perspective. If we collected on every one of them and didn't have a letter going to them, it'd be $15,000 for the actual line extensions plus the charge for the taps.
That's correct. And you know, normally on a project of this nature, we're trying to help the system as far as capacity or, pressure or odorant flow, but not in this case, unfortunately.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, lady and gentlemen, you want to make a decision on this tonight? You want to think about it? What's your pleasure?
Ready to vote? We already put it on.
You don't,
Can I ask another question?
you sure, McKay?
Put it on the floor yet?
No, we don't have a motion
we?
on the floor, but you can ask any
Oh,
question you
go
want.
ahead and put it on the floor.
Move for approval. Put it on the floor. Give me a second.
Second.
All right, now discussion. Go ahead, Ms. Snyder.
Okay, when did the first person out of these 20 receive service? Because this letter is dated July of 2012.
Well, I don't think they would have received actual service before then. They may have had their service lines installed, but I don't think they would have received.
The actual project kicked off in about January, and we finished it up in
January
August of 2012. So January 2012 through August 2012.
About 8 months.
Some of the letters weren't sent out until April of 2012.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So some of them have had gas all winter, and now we're going back and saying, you have to pay? Yeah?
Yeah.
That's what I'm
well, that's the-
understanding.
that's
We've
the-
told them from the get-go it's
that-
okay, and now?
That's the recommendation.
Okay.
Okay, because you had something that was unauthorized. It was not according to policy. And I understand it is a problem. And that's why I'm recommending, we just need to
something.
work with people. But, we've got
So we're going
people
to knock on their door
paying.
now and say, you got to pay?
Well, within a certain reasonable period of time, because everybody has to. And it was an
Unless we were getting an easement that had to be granted.
Yeah. Well, and your problem with your easement, and we're going to start something new in the gas department. Easements have a certain value, and that's what you should be paying. You just shouldn't determine, well, that's the easement, and we're just going to pay this. Because as you can see, the extensions all have different values.
Yeah.
And sometimes you may move over just a couple of feet and just touch somebody's property, and it's an easement. You're not buying land from them. And if it's just an extension to give everybody service, if you're doing that on a petition, you would kind of expect people to give you reasonable easements at no cost if they wanted us to spend that much money to extend the service. It's different if we're routing something through that there's no choice, we've got to come through their property to pressure up the line or loop the system, something like that, where we would essentially, they would not necessarily be interested in gas, maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't, but the value of that easement may be a lot more or it may be a lot less than what an extension price would be. So, as you know, when we do water and sewer or any other easement, we come before the board and get your approval on that. Now, I can see in this case, when you lay plastic pipe and they're moving a little bit, maybe we give them some latitude that say, okay, look, you can give them a tap, which is only $100. But if it's anything more than that, you need to come back to the board and get justification for that.
Because we ranged anywhere from 50 feet to.
Well, 1,300, you're dealing $1,500 for some people here. So, it's whatever the board wants to do. Yes, it was represented to them. You are absolutely correct.
I'm just trying
that
to
all
walk
they
in
had to
their
come
shoes.
in and pay $20. And what I'm saying is, we have a policy, and I think we, obviously, under the circumstances, we definitely need to work with people and give them certainly plenty of time where it's not really an inconvenience to them. We don't want to go on for years and years and years, but, you know, maybe a year or maybe slightly longer, I don't know, depending on how long the tap is. But I think if the other customers have to pay for this, and this was unauthorized, really, it's a total deviation from the policy, that I think it's fairness to all our customers. Something needs to be paid, even if you give them a discount or so. I don't know. There are many ways you can look at this thing. We're just looking for some guidance on how you want to handle it.
All right, other discussion?
Nobody's
Mr. Ellis?
gonna say anything. That letter, did it mention tap fee? Is that what it said? Does it say you will not be charged a tap fee?
No, it doesn't say anything about
You will
tap
need
or
to pay a
extensions.
meter set fee.
We'll need to pay a meter, which is $20. Is that correct?
That's a service fee, right, Greg? Am I correct? $20?
The $20, that was the meter set fee to get a meter set if you had existing utilities with the city of Springfield.
What's unfair is some of them are gonna be, I'm not sure they don't need to pay to run it to their house. Some will be $50. Now, the 1,300-foot one, is that hooked up? Is that one, you know where that's, he's on?
I think it is. Unfortunately, I don't have that list with me.
If I was him, I'd have hooked it up quick.
Yeah, really.
Do you know if I can ask Sam Andavazo, one of our good employees at the gas department, do you know if the 1,320-foot service is connected? I don't have that spreadsheet in front of me.
I believe it is. I'm not exactly sure, but I mean, that could go into that.
I'm almost positive that it is because some of those longer, you know, folks understand that, you know, that's going to be a significant savings if they could get that. But
Could we, excuse me, could we sort of get that information in this letter, if they're connected or not?
Yeah, we do have it, and I'm sorry I didn't bring all that.
spreadsheet.
Oh, okay, we do have.
It's got an I line, so does that mean it's installed and not active?
So I would hate to discuss something, not have all the facts.
If I was an innocent
Mr. Head, let's hear.
If I was an innocent homeowner who had signed up for service, told I would receive this, and I made the accommodations in my home, such as installing a gas water heater or converting my heating system to gas or whatever I did based upon what the city represented, whether it was policy or not, I'd be standing on my head if you asked me to pay.
Sure. All good.
All right, let me throw something else
I
out
agree.
here.
I agree.
For those who are already, the services that have been run, 50 services, correct? If the notice, all right, were sent to any other, could we, in the future, what would be our policy to anybody who has not connected and wanted to connect in the future?
If they would pay.
They would pay. That's what you're suggesting.
Yes.
I got you.
All right.
I hate to be a big mouth, but I have to say this, you know. I don't like getting caught in stuff like this. I mean, you know, and I try to be sympathetic and all, but you know, I don't like to get caught in this. We don't deserve this, okay? And it could have been a little stiffer. You know, you got to pay the piper when you do wrong. But now we're going to put, like you said, put safeguards in, understand me? Because on my next 16 months, I don't want to see anything else like this. Okay?
All right, we have a motion on the floor now, and a second. Is that right?
What's the motion?
That's what I want to remember, the wording exactly. What was your motion?
The motion is
to
recouping, we saw recouping at 15.
all right.
I
recouping what we can recoup. How you put it, Mr. Nutty?
Mr. Nutty was giving people 6 months, is suggesting a time frame of 6 months to a year to pay that for these 50 people.
My motion will read in that order.
Okay.
To work.
Now, that's your motion.
City manager?
And it was duly seconded.
That was
Did
my
that come with
suggestion.
you?
That
Okay.
was my suggestion.
Okay.
It's a matter of requiring them to pay, but giving them up to a year
Yes,
to
sir.
pay for it.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, that's what's on the floor right now. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion that's seconded? Call the roll.
Carnell,
No.
Head,
No.
Sneed,
No.
Mason,
No.
Snyder,
No.
Ellis,
No.
Hubbard,
Yes.
failed 1-6.
All right. I feel like Mr. Head, I think the offer was extended without authority. That's what this whole thing is about. And corrections have been made in other ways, and that's the reason this man's standing there tonight. But I have trouble charging somebody who was told something else. Now, we can put the word out, we can send other letters and say, this is the policy, and the policy that we've had all along is going to be enforced now on. And in case these 50 people or so got a good deal. But I can't, I'm talking to Mr. But we're dealing with, again, about 15,000 feet of pipe for which we would have asked for them to pay $1 a line. So we're not talking about it's wrong, period, but it's not a huge sum of money. But we know what we've got out there now, and I think we ought to deal with it accordingly. But I think this vote spoke to that. So.
We've been out the cost of running a pipe 5 miles. And to be honest, we need all the customers we can get.
Yes, sir.
You know, that's the way
It's not, yes, I agree with that, and we want people to sign up. And these just happen to, of course, I get aggravated at the cable people who always want to offer the new customers a deal, and I've been paying them for years, and I think they ought to offer me a deal. But you call them and they might be benevolent and give you $10 more off of a bill of $160, and I don't think that wasn't what we're here to talk about tonight, but we can't regulate them. All right, we've acted on this.
Do you need to take a motion and just, well, first of all,
We
there's no
defeated that
payment.
motion.
So would it be better just to have another motion that just says that they'll receive just the service fee, $20 per service?
Mayor, I make a motion that
Yeah.
customers on the Martin Chapel extension pay the initial service
Fee.
activation fees.
Of $20.
I second that
whatever.
motion.
All right. All right, you hear that motion? Any further comment?
I have a question.
Mr. Head?
Are we talking about the 50 customers?
Yes.
And how many actually have service?
It's 20 active, according to my records, and that can give or take one or two, but 20 active that has a gas meter in place. There's several customers that has the service installed that's stubbed up by their house, but no active meter. In other words, there's 20 that's being read and billed monthly.
Okay. And we need those other 30 active, to help us recoup some of
The
our
money.
investments.
The motion was a service fee, so if they've already got service, they've already got it.
We're talking about,
So, I mean, we can't go retroactive.
Everybody's paid the $20. That was in the letter. You just pay your $20, you got gas,
50
basically,
have paid $20.
for the 50, yeah.
Okay. So we're voting simply on making that uniform, enforcing that
I
part.
mean, if they've already got service and they can go out there and hook up an appliance to it, I don't want to go bother them and say, hey, we need you to pay some money up. I don't want to go retroactive if they've already got service. The service fee is for new customers who have to come up here and say, I'm ready to get hooked up to it.
The fact is, everybody paid the service fee. That's what the letter said.
Yes.
Come pay the service fee, that's all you're paying, $20. So you don't have to worry about anybody going retroactive.
Are we
or
saying that
anything.
this is not necessary then, that we've already collected that? And therefore
Yes,
it's
the
not
$20
necessary?
we have. Everybody has to pay to initiate any utility. You have to pay a service fee. So that's what was paid by everybody. That's what the letter said.
So I rescind that motion.
Okay. The seconder rescind.
The maker was saying second accepts.
All right, we're done here.
Okay, so the assumption is then, other than the service fee, we're not charging anybody anything for that. That's fine.
That's correct.
Okay.
Up to this point, you'll enforce the normal policy from now
Good
on. All right, and people will be notified as such by letter.
Could I clarify something though, and I may have not heard, but going forward, the folks that haven't got a service, period, but they had a letter and didn't take advantage of it at this point.
We're going to send a corrected letter.
Okay.
So clear again, we're dealing with just 50 people.
Well, the 50 people you've already dealt with.
That's correct, but there was 140 parcels.
But you got more
out
people
there.
that got letters.
Yeah,
If you've got
sure.
a letter but you haven't acted on it, we're going to give you a corrected letter.
Okay.
Okay, good.
All right, now we turn to 312, discuss and possibly take action on the proposals for the new audio-video equipment necessary to get our Channel 3 back up and running. Ms. Holt, are you in charge of that? You're our production person.
Oh, yes.
This is our Assistant City Manager, Gina Holt.
Well, the good news is the price has come down from like $61,000 to $15,900 something. So, and we can have that up and running fairly soon. It's going back to the Infocaster, which is what we have had, and it's just a new and improved, updated, does a heck of a lot more. I talked to Mr. Bradley at the county, and as of right now, they're still waiting to get they're hoping to get a PEG channel from Comcast. And if they do, they will not be participating. And he said yesterday that they're still waiting for Comcast to analyze that, and so they're still holding out, so there's no guarantee that they'll be coming in. However, Ridgetop is using our channel to broadcast, so I just wanted you to know that. So it's possible that we would be paying the whole just under $16,000.
All right. What you're approving then is that amount then?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a question?
Mr. Nutting.
Gina, did we clarify that there are no hardware costs associated?
Yes, we did. Because we're buying seats, so that is the total cost. And
And that cost again is?
Is the $15,957.24.
$15,957
and 24 cents.
Or as they say on QVC, and change. Okay.
I guess
You can tell what people watch in my house, and it's not me, but
my question, Mr. Smith,
go ahead, Mr.
how
Huggins.
soon?
I think by your next meeting in October,
Okay.
the regular meeting.
Well, that would be good. I've heard more comment about that than any other subject that people talk to me about in the last 3 months. I will say that. So it's good to know
And we
that
will,
people do-
again, as a reminder, we'll
do
be
watch
doing,
it and they'll miss it. They
and we'll
miss
be
it.
broadcast through AT&T, I'm sorry.
And
Clear.
we will be playing all the ones that were missed. We'll just.
Oh, good.
The good thing is we'll get a chance to just continuously run these meetings, so.
Do you have to pull up on demand to get it, or you just gonna be running it?
I think it's
Okay. All right. Is there a motion then that this be approved? Got it?
So move.
Second?
Is it
Discussion.
budgeted? Is it budgeted?
Yes, it's budgeted at a slightly less amount,
10,000 was budgeted.
But it's a necessity.
because I think we're planning the county to go half. But it's close enough there, and I think it's on a note anyway, so we've got some flexibility there.
It's a necessity, Mr.
All right. Other
Mr.
questions?
Ellis, to make sure
Yes,
the citizens.
Mr. Sneed?
The last meeting, I asked Ms. Holt to bring forward all of the bids that were submitted so that we could have a decision to look at what was being offered from the other people who submitted. I don't think anyone's been happy with the Channel 3 system that we have now, and the way I'm reading this is they had to find some parts or something for this antiquated equipment to get it running. And, you know, we're spending $15,000 or $16,000 to shore up some old stuff that we haven't been happy with. I thought we was trying to do something to go forward where people could access this on demand from their computer and get a little bit more modernized with this.
Oh, this is definitely updated and modernized and more digital. And Dave Brewer could probably explain it better than I can because I'm not a technical person. But we're using a totally different computer where it has a lot more capabilities. It switches audio to video. The audio can go from music to audio for a meeting. It has a lot more capable. It's the same company basically. The company Harris sold or separated to another division. It's still Infocaster, but it is, from what I can tell, and Dave was in on those meetings, it's totally different from the Infocaster that we have now, and the computer capability is totally different because it will be constantly upgraded through the seats that we buy.
Is there any other references, like if you were buying anything, you could ask that vendor, do you have any reference from other customers? Have we seen what this equipment looks like somewhere else, or we're just taking their word for it?
Dave, you met with the guy too. I'm not sure if they're doing any other cities around here, but it's the Infocaster that we've been using.
I mean, they're in the business of doing this. Who else are they selling this equipment they're trying to sell us?
Well, this is mostly software. This is mostly software.
I mean, who else is using whatever they're trying to sell us, so we can maybe go look at it?
Well, it's digital signage. To answer your question, we didn't ask for references. You know, this board gave us a budget, and we were trying to come within that budget. Previously stated, we tried to do better, and it was 4 times that amount. So we can't do any better than what we've got unless you guys want to spend $61,000 on the new, and this is just the television side. If you want streaming video, if you want it to be able to go onto the internet at our homepage, and you want to, we're going to have to investigate that further, but it's going to be substantially more than $61,000.
Well, that's part of what I had asked to be looked into. Would that be part of the higher $61,000 bid? Was that included?
No, so that's just, once again, that's just a telephone, that's just a television package.
So I made that request to look into that. That wasn't even looked into.
No, sir.
So we don't know what that would cost.
Several years ago, we had a vendor come and tell us that it would be in excess of $60,000 a year. And this was back when we were looking at the Infocaster 7 years ago. You know, to answer your question, we were not directed to do that. You requested it, but we were not directed to do that by this board.
Well, it was $60,000 recurring every year is what they're wanting to do that kind of stuff. Awesome. Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
Dave, one thing that we've had numerous complaints about in the past is the quality of the audio. Should this change in equipment, this updating though of this existing type, will that correct that problem?
I would like to tell you yes, but I feel confident when I say it is a Comcast issue in certain sections, certain subsections of their network. There are certain places in town, no problem. There are other places that the audio just will not come through. And it's a standard definition channel too. So they're not really, with the franchise being a state franchise now, they're not really motivated like they were to help us out.
All right.
That's another reason we're trying to go to AT&T to get more people so that more people will be able to watch it. And we have found out, as Dave said, some of that is through Comcast.
But what you're proposing would be accessible to both AT&T and Comcast. All right, well, that is an improvement. All right, now, do we have a motion with this to approve this amount? We do. And a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mason.
Aye.
Ellis.
Aye.
Sneed.
No.
Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Snyder.
Aye.
Pass 6-1.
All right. 313 is to discuss and possibly take action on an amendment for task order number 1 in the Gresham Smith and Partners sewer wastewater contract. Is that what that is?
That is.
Okay.
Any comment, Mr. Nutting, before we?
Well, I'd like, this all deals with some survey work that was initially in part of the contract included in there. And local surveyor got the work. I think he made too low an estimate. He couldn't complete the survey on time. I think what they had to do is they've had to go back and hire a surveyor with more resources to finish up the job and to get survey grade work, or you can explain that, Roger, a little bit better than I can. They're going to probably have to spend the money that they probably, I think the one that's doing it now is doing about $75 a manhole, and the local guy did it about $45 a manhole, I believe. So
There are 2,800 manholes, is what I'm reading here. And in order to get it done, you had to change because the existing one could not get it done in that time frame. You need this to get this done, and this is going to come out of, is there contingency in this? Or, of course, I know this is an ongoing project and there is no cap on it other than the amount that we have borrowed for this purpose, which I think the whole project is about $7.5 million.
well, what it is, Mayor, is I've asked, there's a spreadsheet from Gresham Smith. I want to find out where we were with everything that we're committed to. And you know, we'll be awarding another bid here before the end of the year. Those specs are ready to go out. The bid specs go out in September. And that when we have the workshop, all this will be explained.
Okay.
But right now, we have $7,300,000 for sewer. Everything that's committed to or will be committed to, we've got an estimate on what the next bid will be. The next project will be a lot less expensive than the first project, which is undergoing right now, which is taking place right now. So we're at $7,201,395 is the estimate. So we do have money to, we would have paid it anyway. Now we're just paying it on the back end.
Okay. So the request is to approve Amendment 1, totaling.
100,000.
Okay. All right. All right. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Did I hear you say that's within the bond issue that we have?
Yes.
It's not going to be beyond that?
This is not.
No, we have 7th. If you look at your spreadsheet, you'll see that it was originally $6 million. We took the $1.3 million that was going to be dedicated to the last phase of 41 South and put it in that project, making it the total available funding for the project is 7.3. So what you have to understand, what the workshop is about, we're going to commit just about all this money on the 2 projects and all the engineering and the inspection involved in that. So the workshop's going to be, okay, where are we going to go from here on the next phase? But we do have enough, based on their estimates, we're still within the budget by at least $100,000.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there further discussion?
Yes, sir. Roger, we're moving.
Yes, sir.
Are you pleased with the move?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Please call the roll.
Snyder.
Aye.
Carneal.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Ellis.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
All right, if you will, let me give you the dates now for this. We have this is item 314 I discussed with you earlier. And remember now, what you've got on your calendars is lined up to this point is the October meeting. We're going to have an extra meeting on October 1st to be brought up to date on the wastewater situation and where we are. Then you'll have a regular meeting on October the 15th. And then we need an extra meeting to meet with the board and all of realizing Robertson's future, so we can learn more about what their emphasis is on economic development, and we can provide some suggestions, et cetera, and perhaps ask them some other things about what they're doing. And the dates that would be, if you spread the difference between the October and November meetings, you've got a 5-week spread there. So do you want this meeting on
7?
Do you want it on you already got 2 in October. Do you want to put it on November the 5th? That sound good?
What is 5th? Is it a holiday or something?
These are Tuesday. Well, if it were an even year, it'd be an election day, but it's not an even year.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
November 5th then for that. Margot, if you will notify that group, please. 7 o'clock, yes. All right, now, the final thing on everybody good with that date too? Okay.
That's good.
So your extra meetings are on the first Tuesday of October and the first Tuesday of November. Now we're ready for the consent docket. Is there a motion?
Move for approval of the total consent.
Okay. Second? Call the roll.
Mayor, can I just clarify
Yes,
something?
you
If
may.
that's okay. Thank you, Mayor. Just want to make sure that we're very close to all the budgeted numbers, but just want to make sure you had them. On the first one, 4.1, the budget amount was $60,000. The bid is $61,622, so that's very good. The next bid is for the dump bed. The bid is $14,500. We originally budgeted $13,000, so that's close. And then we've got the bathroom at the golf course off hole number 3 and 4, and we really have $15,000 designated for that, so that's under the budgeted amount.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Ellis.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Sneed.
Aye.
Snyder. Carneal.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Head.
Yes.
Pass 7-0.
All right, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. At this point, I'd like to extend my appreciation to George Hall for all his years of service to the city. He's worked for the city over 30 years and has done an excellent job as director of the gas system. As we're all aware, back in the early 90s, George, who was the number 2 person in the department, inherited a bad situation and put the department in a bad light and in a difficult position. And George, through his leadership, put it on a solid business footing. He also upgraded the existing system with the elimination of cast iron and bare steel. We still have a little bare steel that's coming out now, but basically all the old main has been replaced. He extended the system to expand the customer base and improve system performance. I think that's been very successful. He hired, trained, and retained very capable employees. I think Greg Riddle is a fine example of that, and we've got a great gas department. He kept the system, facilities, and equipment in good condition. He took a leadership role in the City of Springfield Employee Safety Program, and the department is in good financial condition, and in the past year used $1 million in reserves to discount winter rates for all residential and small commercial customers. That's not the first time we did that. I think we did about $600,000 in the early part of the last decade. So he is also a founder, because it started with Springfield and Clarksville. He is a founder of the Tennessee Energy Acquisition Corporation, which is now an organization of 19 member gas utilities in Tennessee and several associated utilities, both inside and outside of Tennessee, to purchase large volumes of natural gas at prices well below index price. And this organization also helps gas utilities manage their storage and transportation costs. So George has had a positive effect on this community. He's a positive effect regionally and statewide and even in the Southeast. So I want to extend my appreciation to George. He's an asset to the community. I hope he stays involved with the community, and wish him nothing but the best. Also wanted to give you some information. Chief Thompson and his staff have been reviewing the animal control ordinance, and I want to give you a handout here and just show you what David has provided here. On the first 4, but we're not going to go into that. I just want to show you what you're looking at. This is for you to look at, and we'll put it on a future agenda, probably in October. But the first 4 pages have to do with changes in the code book, really based on the last pages, which is an administrative policy that he's recommending. And if we're comfortable with the administrative policy, then there will be some changes that will have to be consistent in the code of ordinances, and that's what the first 4 pages are all about. So if you take some take the opportunity to review that, that would be appreciated, and we'll probably talk about that in October. Also want to make the board aware that Alderman Sneed has asked the staff to evaluate the cycling of traffic signals during the late night and early morning hours. I think that's correct, Alderman Sneed, correct me if I'm wrong. And the traffic committee will review the situation and make a report to the board at hopefully at the next regular meeting. Josh Jeppe, the general manager of the Legacy Golf Course, Josh just took over, is recommending the suspension of the annual fee plan that we started first part of the year until further notice. I think this is benefiting the people that pay the annual fee more than it's benefiting the city. And I'm planning to do just that unless there's some objection to the board. Of course, anybody who's signed a contract or is paying a monthly fee or an annual fee, we will honor that. We will not change that. But when it expires, the intent is to have it expire at least temporarily, and we will not add anybody new to that. So I think if you don't have any problem, that's what I'm going to pursue. If you have anybody on the board tonight has any problem with that, sing out, and we'll just bring it to the board for full action.
Make us money.
We don't explain what you said.
We have an annual fee, if you remember, last year, yeah. And these annual fees have got 10 different categories on them, okay? And the intent was that we would generate additional revenue by this. We're not generating additional revenue. We're giving a really good deal to people who sign up for this, but we're not serving our own best interest. So,
You're proposing not to take on any new customers.
not to take on it and to cease once those terms. If you're on a monthly, at the end of this month, we're not going to renew you for a month. If you have took on a yearly and you paid a year, when that year's up, you're going to be off, and we're certainly not going to add anybody. So we asked somebody, Mr. Jeppe is a revenue driver in this organization, so he's going to look at driving up revenues, which of course is what we need to pay for this thing. So if you don't have any problem with it, I am going to tell him we will honor all the commitments that we've made, we will not take on any more, and that when we review the fees again, which will have to come up in October, he'll have to recommend a new set of rates for annual fee payers.
Okay, so for the $99 a month, we didn't sign contracts, so that will be over at the end of this month.
It'll be end of the month. If you've paid for this month, we'll honor it for this month, and then we'll just say, well, until we establish new rates, we're not going to do it anymore. Also, Andy, the canine officer, is being retired, and our practice has been to transfer the ownership of the dog to its handler for obvious reasons. This dog has been trained to do some very serious work, and so the handler it's been living with the handler all this time. And I'm planning to proceed with the transfer of the ownership to Officer Mark McLean effective September 26th, which has been our practice. We've always given it to the handler. So I'm advising you of that. If you have any objections to that this evening, I will pull back and we'll wait.
Let me ask a question. Are these attack dogs or mostly drug snakes?
Yes.
They're attack.
This is a dog that is trained to apprehend people,
Okay,
which
yeah.
means he is trained to bite people, yes.
Yeah, he needs to be with his owner, okay.
All right, anything further to come forward?
I've still got a few things, Mayor, I'm sorry. It's a little long tonight, but I'm trying to get right to it. The Springfield Housing Authority Board will not be able to meet with us in October. They are approving their 5-year master plan at the regular meeting in October, and Mr. Hudson thinks they will be able to meet with us in November or whenever. We may want to push it back maybe to the first of the year, but still want to keep that communication open and sit down with them to discuss some mutual concerns. Through the calendar year now, through today, we've removed 30 unsafe buildings, been demolished. In the current calendar year, 21 structures been removed by the owners, 9 have been removed by the city. Of the 9 structures removed by the city, 8 were removed by Public Works, 1 by contractor, and a total of 7 structures have been repaired by the owners. And lastly, I've asked the bid on the water wastewater facility to be delayed a couple of months. We have some we want to make sure that we've got enough money in the budget. I think everything's getting now tight on the bonds, so I want to make sure we have enough money to address. We look like we've got enough money to do the building based on the latest estimates, but there is still some civil work related, and there will be some equipment and furniture that has to be funded. I think that it's going to be tight, but I think we've got it in the budget, but I'm not absolutely sure, and I want to see what those options are. So instead of taking it in October, we will take those bids and open them and award them in December. So just wanted to let you know.
And now, is there anything further?
Thank you, Mayor.
Stand adjourned. Be sure.